Hello. Welcome back to the podcast, friends. As you may have noticed, last week there was no episode, and that's because I was sick. And we're going to talk about this energetic of urgency culture and how I am just such a no to it, and an invitation for you as well to reject urgency culture, everything about it. Because last week when I was sick, I knew that I needed to take the week off from the podcast. And there were still parts in me that were like, no, you have some momentum. You got to keep going, and people are listening and they're counting and they're reaching out and they're telling you how much they love the podcast, and you can't let them down. And I'm like, wow, this is wild. That even after all of the work that I've done and I do, this is still in there. And you know what? It was very, very interesting to me, because I'm like, well, maybe this is always going to be in there to a degree. You know, we live in a world that is ruled by urgency culture. And maybe those messages are always going to somehow infiltrate my system. And the difference is I don't subscribe. I don't listen to it. I didn't go down this, kind of pit of hell of really making myself wrong for needing to take a week off. Because the truth is I felt like shit. And anything that I would have created in that energy just wouldn't have been great anyway. It wouldn't have actually been in service to the deeper mission here. And I think that's what people forget a lot of the time in a world that's really drunk on urgency, is this need for constant output. And if you're a creative, you probably know what I'm talking about, more than the average person. But this expectation to always be putting out content, create. And part of the creative process is actually like living in a more cyclical or seasonal way, where you have seasons of output and then you have seasons of rest. You have seasons of introspection. You have seasons of preparation. And you're not in this constant output energy, which is actually really extractive. If we think about it, requiring and expecting people to be in a constant state of output is wildly extractive. It's relating to people as though they're robots. They're not fully human. And we get caught in that bind when we forget ourselves that we are human, and we lose the grace for our humanity. Meaning, I have just as much approval for the times that I need to rest and I do nothing as I do the times that I'm hyper creative and I'm doing a lot of output. And being in approval of that dynamic range also doesn't mean that I don't come up against these narratives in my own mind, because I do. The difference is I don't listen to them. I don't let them rule my behavior. I don't let them impact my sense of self and my self-esteem. I let them just kind of pass on through. Like, I noticed that thought last week. I'm like, oh, well, that's an interesting thought. Well, I'm not going to do a podcast, and I'm not going to go on the internet and make some concession and, apologize for not being able to maintain a podcast when I'm sick. I don't owe anybody that explanation. I don't owe anybody that level of access into my own world. Now, I'm always going to reveal, and I will always share when I'm resourced to. But I will not do it before that point. And there's no amount of pressure. There's no amount of social pressure. I don't know if you heard that honk. There's no amount of peer pressure or, algorithm pressure that will have me override what's true. Like I just refuse. I see a lot of people living as though they are a slave to this inorganic system. A system that, in order to thrive, it requires your abandonment of self. It requires you to extract your life force energy, to treat yourself like a workhorse, like a robot that doesn't need downtime. Like it takes you out of your organic nature. And I'm just not a yes to it. It's as simple as that. Like, I don't feel like this strong energy of like, oh, I need to like fight against this, like take it down. Like, no, you take it down by just opting out. Like by refusing to invest your life force energy into that system, into that way of thinking. Like, you want to take down a system? Well, you better start deconstructing all of the ways that your mental faculties are playing out the energetics of that system in your own body, in your own relationship to your own human. And as you do that, well, you start opting in to something different, something a little more organic, something a little more true, something a little more real. And, I really wanted to share this with you today so that we can all start to kind of rumble around this idea of rejecting urgency culture. Like it's really gotten out of control. And it puts people in such compromised positions in so many ways. And nothing good ever gets created from this sense of urgency. Like the best songs that are written that really stand the test of time, they weren't written because some record exec had a timestamp of like, you need to crank us out a song in the next 5 minutes that we are going to pimp and use to make a fuck ton of money off of you. It's not how it works. What works is you get a bunch of creatives together. They have a conversation. Like, I love the songwriting process because it's such a parallel to life. Like, if you go in and expecting to like write a hit, you are probably going to write shit. And if you go in with the intention of writing what's true, you're probably going to write a hit. Or you're going to have a session where it looks on the outside as though nothing has happened, but everything is happening. And sometimes the best songs are a byproduct of hours of nonsensical conversation, where you sit and you talk and you connect and you throw around ideas and you move energy and you move emotion sometimes. Sometimes you have to literally get out of the writing room and go out into the world and experience, the sun on your skin, or, being in a new environment like a restaurant or a park, and you get a new perspective on things and it clicks. Like, you cannot rush the creative process if you want mastery. If you want something that really moves the soul, you can't bypass the soul. You can't bypass the human either, because the human is the vehicle for the soul. And so many people are living their life in a way that dishonors their human, that does not listen to the needs, like the foundational needs of the human. And then we wonder why it feels like the soul is missing on this planet. Well, because there's a lot of people who are living so fractured and disconnected from their own soul that they can't bring that frequency through. They can't bring that energy through whatever they're doing, whether they're an artist, whether they, are a painter, or an electrician or a plumber or a lawyer. Like, it doesn't matter what you're doing. What matters is that you create your life in a way where you're able to bring your soul through whatever your mission is. And in order to bring your soul through, you will have to stand up to the machine that is urgency culture. Because urgency culture just cares about consuming, consumption, extraction. Let us literally suck all of the marrow out of the bones and then toss them to the side. Doesn't really care about what it's destroying in the process. And me personally, if I want to see any change on this planet, I know that change has to start with how I'm orienting in my own life and live my life in a way that sets a new example. And part of that are these micro moments where I have the choice to override my human and produce content for the sake of the machine, or I pause, I take a beat, and I ask myself what is going to honor my human being and ultimately honor the thing that gets created through me. And that's where I invest my energy. And what that looked like last week was, well, I'm going to lay on the couch. I'm going to watch some shows. I'm going to nap. I'm going to drink tea. I'm going to eat soup. I'm going to have a bath. I'm going to go to bed as soon as I'm tired. And I had this sense, I could feel it on the Thursday, and I had a client session, and I woke up feeling a little off, and I went into the session, did the session. It was great. And after the session, my energy crashed. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And the day before, I had signed up for a spin challenge. And I'd also done this trauma program reset. And so it's going into the subconscious mind and kind of closing old loops. So when we do that type of energetic work, when we do that type of emotional work, when we are working with the brain, there are, there's a period of time of the upgrade that's happening as these loops are closing and things are resetting. And sometimes if we don't carve out proper time for integration, the system will force it. And while I had carved out a couple days after, thank God, there was this additional piece of if we throw in a little bit of a cold, that'll really force a stop, because I would have kept going with the spin challenge. And who knows where that would have taken me, but it probably would have taken me more actively into my life. It would have had me focus on writing, because I'm writing a book right now, and putting together this collection of poetry and prose and stories and, lots of, insights from the front lines of loving and creating and being a woman on this planet. And so I probably would have thrown myself into that and been like, well, I have, 4 days in the calendar. I may as well use this wisely. And I wouldn't have given myself the full spaciousness of full stillness, full rest, sleeping a lot, to let the system, the physical system, upgrade alongside with the emotional and the mental and the spiritual. And so it doesn't surprise me that, I got sick. And when I did, when I felt it on the Thursday, I was like, oh, I know what's coming. I know what's happening here. And I know enough to trust it and surrender and move with this new current of energy, which is I have to gear down. I have to clear the decks. I've got to make a big batch of soup because I know that I'm not going to have the energy to cook. I live alone, so I needed to really set myself up to have some nourishment and good food. And I also heard this, voice of my intuition. And she was like, you are going to need 4 days. This is a 4-day integration. Do not go back to spin until you have let yourself have these 4 days, because if you go back before the 4 days, you are going to make this worse. And you are going to not be able to finish the challenge. And you are probably not going to be able to fulfill on some of your other obligations. And there's been enough ego death in my life and enough initiations that I have walked myself through, enough dark nights of the soul, and all of those things are designed to help you really get in touch with your own internal compass, your own internal voice, your internal wisdom. So many people outsource their wisdom to other people, to systems, to AI, to social media, to the government, to the medical system, to ideologies. Like there's a lot that we will outsource ourselves to avoid the uncomfortable and unglamorous and very messy journey of going down and in to connect to your own heart of your inner wisdom. And that's your intuition. And the path to your intuition it's not as, easy as like, oh, I'm connecting to my intuition. You have to learn the voice of your intuition, the frequency of your intuition, where it sits in your body. And you will also have to learn the other parts of you who masquerade as your intuition. Because if you think that the voice that you're hearing is your intuition and you've never questioned it, chances are it's not. Chances are it's a different voice, a different part, probably a wound that has learned the lingo of consciousness. It's learned the lingo of personal development and is masquerading as your intuition. And the only way to really know what's what from what's what is by really getting into your body, clearing out the emotional pipes, feeling fully, and really understanding yourself on an intimate level. There's a lot of people who are self-aware in certain ways, but they lack the ability to really create intimacy with their patterns and translate that into changed behavior. So, having awareness about, certain patterns that we run or where they come from is important. It's one stop on the train, but it's not the only stop on the train. We have to take that further down the track. Like, just because I'm aware of something doesn't mean that awareness is going to cause change. Awareness alone does not change anything. It just means you're aware of what's going on. But if you're still running the same patterns, you're missing some crucial steps. And those steps are related to new action that you take. And new action is largely uncomfortable. Like, imagine you have never, well, maybe never is a strong word. Maybe you haven't gone on a run for like years. And you're like, I want to be a world-class sprinter. Just because you have awareness that you have that desire does not make that desire a manifestation. In order for that desire to become a manifestation, you have to train. You have to foot to pavement, baby. You got to go out and start with that first run, and it is going to be messy. You might be able to run for 5 minutes before you get winded or before your body starts cramping, and it's going to take time to build up the endurance, to build up the cardio strength, the muscle strength, the determination and devotion to be able to get to that level of excellence, right? And the same is true in the emotional, relational, creative, and spiritual realm. Awareness of our patterns is just the beginning. And then we step onto the path of using that awareness to inspire new behavior that is more congruent with the outcome that we're looking for. So if I want this upgraded relationship, but I'm still running patterns that keep me hidden, that keep me avoiding truth, that, wall me off from the other person, my desire for that relationship doesn't really mean much because my behavior is incongruent with that vision. And in order to get your behavior in a state of congruence and coherence, you need awareness. So we're not poo-pooing awareness at all. Awareness is very, very important. But too many people rely just on awareness alone. They think if they're aware, that's going to magically change shit. And it doesn't. It just makes you aware that you're an asshole. Makes you aware of all the stuff that you're doing. And if you aren't taking new action, that awareness can quickly turn on you, where then you can go down this self-deprecating path because you aren't actually willing to step into a path of expansion. That's what happens, when we aren't willing to take new action and expand ourselves and change who we know ourselves to be in the direction of our best and highest good. What will happen with our awareness is that it will now be used against you, by the parts that are threatened by change. And so the way that those parts keep you kind of stuck and spinning your wheels is by sending you down this self-deprecating path of I'm terrible, I'm shitty, I'm a horrible person, and look at all this evidence I have, and it'll have you collecting more and more of that evidence, which just kind of gets you further stuck in the mud. And so I would rather illuminate this so that you have choice in the matter, right? Because now that I presenced it, if you go down the path of self-deprecation, now it's a choice. Now you know better and you're choosing not to do better. And, there's a lot of, uncomfortable self-reflections inside of that. But now that we've presenced it and you have choice, now you can also go the other direction, which is self-actualization, becoming the person that you're actually here to be, becoming the person that you were always destined to become, even with all the shit that you've experienced. All the shit that you've experienced is grist for the mill of what you're ultimately here to do and who you're here to be and the example that you're here to set. You never learn discernment if you don't experience contrast. You have to experience contrast in order to figure out what discernment means in your body. Going back to this whole concept of you have to be in your body. You have to be in your body in order to create a new world, to create new possibilities, to create your dreams. It doesn't just happen because you think it, even though there's a lot of, tools out there and books out there and philosophies of you just think it and then it happens. No, there's a huge missing link there. You think it to get the vision clear, and then you start acting congruently with it. And it's through your action, your aligned action with your vision, that your vision becomes a reality. It's not a passive process. It's a very active process, and it requires you to take aligned action. And the more you clear out all of the stuff that's in the way, all of the things that you don't want to face about yourself, and you face them and you feel them, and you learn how to have approval for them, which, by the way, is one of my very, very strong suits as a teacher and a mentor. So if you are like, how the fuck would I do that? Well, come get in my world and I will teach you how to do that. And a lot of it is you learn by being in very close proximity to my nervous system. My nervous system has this dialed. So the more time you spend around me, your system is starting to pick that up through me. And I also will give you tools and coaching and support in order to really start working with this part of yourself more effectively, so that you can feel the freedom to go into the mystery, or to go into the shadows, or go into these harder conversations about yourself, and do that with dignity, do that with grace, do that with a lot of self-respect and self-honoring. And as you are able to meet those parts in that way, you free up so much of your energy to be able to create on purpose. And the more you create on purpose, the more you are going to be able to feel when this more synthetic energy, this more synthetic matrix tries to hook you in. So for me, like that idea of, I should release a podcast because, I need to, that's the synthetic matrix coming in and trying to take me out. And instead, because I'm so rooted in this organic matrix, this organic sense of life, sense of self, I can feel the incongruence of that. I can feel it when it comes in. And I'm like, oh, that's not truth. That's not what I subscribe to. That's not what I'm giving my energy to. That's not what I'm hitching my wagon to. No, thank you. I will not. And the more that we start to slow down our lives, and listen, living a life that's in resonance with your soul doesn't mean that it's like all soft and all quiet and very spacious all the time. The most fulfilling life is going to be a dynamic one, where you can meet the seasons of your life with the energy that it requires. So in order to do that, you do have to reject urgency culture to a degree. You do. And when your schedule is so full that you don't even have time to think, what do you think that does to your nervous system? What do you think that does to your emotional world? If you don't even have time to think, how do you have time to feel? How do you have time to really assess what is really right and true for me here? And it doesn't mean you have to pump the brakes and gear your life down entirely. But it does mean that you build in spaciousness into your day, into your week, into your month, so that you can get a taste of what that feels like. You can get a taste of what it feels like to just be in your own energy without getting whipped around by the forces that be. And there's a lot of that right now. There's a lot of injections into the collective consciousness that are designed to disembody you, that are designed to hook into these parts of you that are more vulnerable, and play on, your desire to be a good person. And so once it hooks you, it's got you. And once it's got you, it's going to feed. And it's going to feed and feed and feed and feed until you are a shell of a person and you're like, what the fuck happened to me? It's kind of like an abusive relationship, right? Like they don't start off abusive or you never would enter it. They start off all bright and shiny, just like these systems do. They promise, an outcome, something that appeals to your vision for a better world or a better life or a better love or a better relationship to self, whatever it is. But the method and the vehicle to get there is, toxic. It's not true. It's not organic. And in a lot of sense, like right now, a lot of these energies are quite demonic. They're not rooted in truth. Let's just say that. And so if that's the case, if that's what we are giving ourselves to, and we are not operating with spiritual sovereignty, emotional sovereignty, and sobriety, we're not in our body, it's very easy to get whipped around and get hijacked and pulled in to these currents that are designed to take whatever they can get from you. And when you aren't willing to play that game, when you're willing to slow it down a little bit, when you are willing to not feed the machine and instead move at a pace that's true for you. And I know this is going to be confronting, especially if you're like, yeah, well, I have a more conventional job or a more conventional life. And great. Those are all choices. And listen, you can still have that and move at a pace that's true for you. You just have to build it into other areas of your life. And then see if it's still true to be on that track. A lot of people want the reward, the outcome, without having to go through the process to get it. They want the relationship without having to go through the process of self-discovery and becoming the best possible partner that they could become. People want the health and vitality and the great body without having to put in the work to actually move their body, take care of their body. People want the money without having to put in the work to build the thing that stands the test of time. And the thing that stands the test of time is always the thing that's most true. It's always the thing that comes from your soul. When people build businesses from ego, those are the businesses that either don't stand the test of time or they extract from you because it was never true to build that. But you built it because you thought you should, or you thought it was going to make you look good, or you thought it was going to make you rich. And then you become a slave to that identity instead of being a steward of the energy that you were here to bring through. So all that to say, that's why I didn't do a podcast last week. It was very important to me to be an example of what it is that I teach. And I will never move at a pace that isn't true. I will never do something that isn't true for me. And no matter how much pressure is put, if it's a no, it's a no. And no amount of manipulation or pressure or threatening of disapproval or, being exiled from, good social standing is going to stop me from acting congruently with what is right and true for me. And that does mean that I am misunderstood a lot. And at this point, I don't fucking care. I understand me. And the people who are on this same frequency, they understand me. And the ones that are waking up to this frequency of authenticity and being in more of an organic expression of life, they feel it too, and they are drawn into the vortex. And then they are also given permission to move at a pace that's true. One of the best ways to do this is live in a more cyclical nature. So if it's the physical winter where you are, that's not a time to like crank up the energy. It's a great time to, prioritize more rest. It doesn't mean that you take no action. It just means that you alter how much action you're taking and how much downtime you're taking. When it's getting dark at 4 p.m., that might be a signal from Mother Nature that maybe we actually need more sleep in this season. And if you listen, well, you might just get yourself in sync, and prepped for the spring where you start to really speak life into some of the ideas or the processes or the things that you want to create and build. And then you play with that momentum. Another way you can do it is eating seasonally. It's a great way to start playing with that rhythm. Like eating foods that are more local and seasonal to the season that you're in. Very, very helpful for your body. And very, very helpful to get the body in alignment with the mind and the heart and the energy and the emotions. If you are a woman, really working with your menstrual cycle, because you literally have these 4 seasons in you every single month. And when you can even design your month in a way that honors each of these different energetics, that is 10 out of 10. You're going to be in a good place, girlfriend. And this is some of my favorite work to do with couples, obviously the heterosexual couples, and also my lesbian couples, because when they get in sync with the rhythm of the feminine body, there's so much that opens up relationally. There's so much intelligence to this cyclical style of living. Why do you think nature is running that template? Nature is the OG template. And so we've just gotten into a place in the world where we are really out of sync with the organic template. And this does not mean that we have to reject all technology and go live off the land and like shit in buckets. Like, it doesn't mean that. Okay. You still get to, have your makeup and your spin class and your bougie coffee and your Netflix. Like you get to have all of the things that modern life presents to you as a possibility, but do it in a way that allows you to stay connected to that inherent blueprint, that inherent rhythm to life, because that rhythm to life is the cheat code. If you work with that rhythm, you can sustain your success, you can sustain your relationship, you can sustain your energy, and when we reject that template, that's when we hit burnout. That's when we hit, a world where we're creating more chaos in our relationships, in our communities, in our society at large. Like when you're out of sync with the natural rhythm, you're also out of sync with your own body and your own intelligence and your own intuition. And if you are out of body and you're out of sync with your intuition, you are you're an easy target for hijacking. And the machine will hijack you. It will use you. And it will use you to do its bidding. And if you were like, that doesn't seem like a good use of my life this time around, I would agree with you on that. And it requires you to be really sovereign in yourself. to take a stand for living life in a way that is really true for you, even if it doesn't make sense to other people, even if it upsets other people. And this doesn't mean that you become completely unrelational either. And you're like, I'm just moving on my cycle and my time and like going at my own pace and I don't have to consider anybody. Well, you can do that, and you probably should go live in the woods alone if you're going to behave like that. But if you're going to have relationships do require you to be in relationship. So moving at your own true pace is very important relationally, but it's equally important to inform the people in your life where you're at on the map and co-create with them, because their rhythm matters too, and their rhythm might be different that day, and that's fine. Like this obsession of we need to be the same, we need to love all the same things and do all the same things is very codependent. And it's a very immature way of relating. I'd say that is, a byproduct of more of a synthetic matrix in terms of relationships. Whereas the organic matrix is like, okay, what's your vibe today? Where's your energy at today? This is where my energy is at today. In what ways can we co-create? And like, what do you need? What do I need? Let's set our relationship up to be in service to that natural rhythm, to have a lot of spaciousness for rest and connection and alone time too, and time to be out in life and out connecting with other people and time to connect with each other. And like, we really have to do it in a more intentional way. And when we are willing to play a bigger game, and a bigger game is a more congruent game, and that congruence starts with yourself. It's very hard to find a harmonic with another person. So harmony, if you aren't in congruence with yourself first. I was on a podcast earlier today, and we were talking about resonance and harmony and congruence. And you can have resonance with someone, but you need to know and have awareness what part is in resonance, because you can have wound resonance with someone. You can have a trauma bond resonance with someone. And then you can also have heart resonance with someone, an aligned resonance with someone. Very different. And so resonance is not always an indication of alignment. It just means something in you is resonating with that other person. And we need to investigate what that is. And the more that you have internal coherence with yourself, your heart, your body, your emotions, your values, it's all locked in alignment, then you can trust that the resonance that you're feeling with people is likely soul resonance. It's likely a deeper sense of congruence. And what happens when you combine energies like that is that there's this beautiful harmonic that happens. But when you have, resonance that's maybe more shadowy or more wound-based, when you start merging those energies, you get a dissonant energetic. So like in music, when you have two notes that don't go together and it hurts your ears to listen to, you're like, that's a dissonant sound, dissonant frequency. And that's what happens when we don't bring that deeper layer of awareness into the lived experience, into like being on the court of our life. And that's where we start to make shifts and changes and move in the direction that allows for more congruence with your body, which for me last week meant, okay, these 4 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they are for resting. They are for tending to my body. They are for sleeping. I went out for a walk on Saturday. It was like a 2.5 hour walk. I'm like, okay, what is it that I need? I need a little bit of sunshine. I do. and I need some fresh air. So I'm going to go out for a slow walk. I'm going to go to the market, get a chai tea. It's also interesting fact, like when you're sick, it's so fascinating how your body will only pull you to have the things that are actually really good for you and like really coherent with your system. And so I wanted a chai tea. So I walked to the market, got a chai, and, sat and watched the ships in the harbor and the sunset, and then walked home and, had a lot of baths, which I love, but they're not for every season of my life. I have a hard time getting in the bath in the summertime, even when I'm sick. But in the winter, it's a vibe for me. In the fall and winter, I just love it. I love sitting in the warm water and low light. Low light is very important to me. You will never catch me with bright lights in my house. I hate it. And really just nourishing myself, like all the foods that I needed that were very nutrient dense but easy to digest. That was my 4 or 5 days. And then as Sunday was approaching, I'm like, okay, I got to get back to spin because I have this challenge and I don't want to not complete it because A, I paid for the challenge, but B, like I want to do it. And my body still said no. My body said, Monday is not the day to go back to spin. Tuesday is the day that you can go back. Monday, go to yoga. Go to hot yoga. Get in the hot room, sweat. You can take it, like ease your way in. So that's what I did. I went to hot yoga on Monday night, and I did a much more gentle practice than I would normally do because I was listening to the signals of my body. I wasn't overriding my body. I wasn't forcing her to work for me. It's like that Britney Spears song, like work bitch. I wasn't treating her like that. I'm like, okay, let me tune in. Like what actually feels reverent? What's in range today? And there were a couple points in the practice where I'm like, nope, I am not doing that sequence. Like, I don't need to do that flow sequence in the middle of class. I'm going to sit in child's pose. Normally I don't, but on Monday I did. And that was okay. I'm like, oh, this feels so good. And then I woke up on Tuesday and I'm like, I can go back to spin. And was able to do 3 classes in a row. And my system feels okay. And then today it was like, are we going to go back? But my body was like, no, I need a rest day. And so again, I gave myself the rest day. And then we're back at it tomorrow. So the more that you can get in touch with your body and then design the things that you're doing to be in service to your body and in alignment with your body, the smoother life is going to become. And like, I got on a call this morning, did the podcast. It was fucking out of this world, 10 out of 10. Get on a coaching call with my business partner. Like, I can't even begin to explain to you the levels of wins and breakthroughs of the women in Club Unhinged. It's so great to see them coming to life and building lives that they're obsessed with. That's what the container is all about, is come in and fuck around, find out like how good your life can get when it's powered by magic, and create a life that you're actually obsessed with. And so to see women in the ethos of that and embodying that and coming to the calls and sharing their wins and the things that they're up to, and the coaching in that type of conversation is just very different. And the transmissions that came through today, like the very last one that I did, like the chat was like popping off of like, yes, preach, I feel like I'm at church. But that's what happens when we really hone the energy and we are in alignment. And after that call, I went right into another one with my mentor, and it's a call where we're co-creating this new container. And the women inside of it, I'm just obsessed with. I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to know these bitches even more. It's so great. And, and then being here now and creating the podcast, like there's energy to do all these things today. And I don't feel depleted because I honored what my system actually needed. I went with the rhythm of my season. I didn't override it. I didn't subscribe to this urgency culture that would have me pimp my life force for the machine, because I'm not willing to do that. And if that makes me unpopular, so be it. If that makes me misunderstood, so be it. If that disappoints people, so be it. I'm willing to disappoint someone to stay true to myself. I'm willing to lose a relationship to stay true to myself. I'm willing to, put things in the ground, projects, dynamics, businesses in the ground if they're no longer true. If they are no longer in alignment, I will let them go so that I can keep my energy nice and clean, nice and reverent, nice and aligned, and really in that pocket of truth and resonance and coherence and harmony. So that's all I've got for you today. I know that was a lot to chew on and digest, and I love that so many of you were reaching out to share how the podcast is impacting you. I always love hearing from you. And you can leave actually a review and a comment on Spotify. So if you listen on Spotify, you're able to leave comments under each episode. I'd love to read yours or a review if that feels good to you. The 5-star reviews are so helpful because it then teaches the algorithm that this is a conversation that really matters. So if this is a conversation that has mattered to you, it would mean the world to me if you would be willing to rate the podcast, leave a great review. The 5-star reviews are 10 out of 10. And, let me know what you want to hear. I'm going to start doing some community question and answer sessions where it's kind of like an Ask Kelsey, and I will give you my 2 cents on your questions. So I'm excited to roll that out soon, and it's just so wonderful to be back with you all today. And I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, your weekend, wherever you are in space and time when you're listening to this, and really take good care of you. It's okay to reject that urgency culture. You're not going to die. Life is not going to fall apart if you stop plugging into the urgency culture and you start moving at a pace that's true for you. In fact, what's going to happen when you move at a pace that's true for you is you're going to create a life that's true. You're going to create a life that you can actually maintain and uphold and feel really fulfilled by. And I love that for you. And if you would like to come in and work with me on a deeper level, that's available for you as well. You can email me and we can explore your options, or you can apply for Initiated, and I'll put that in the show notes. You can reach out to me on social media and we can have a little chit chat in the DMs. That's another option. And we'll see which path of this work is best in service to you, and we can take it from there. So thank you for being here today. I love you, and I'll speak with you soon. Bye, friends.